everybody? This is Kyle, and you are back watching Knockouts in 3 Counts. And before we get going, you already know what it is. Knock out that subscribe button and make sure it don't get up for the 3 count. And as always, I've got Corey with me. Corey, throw your social media out real quick.
As always, only thing I use is Twitter. Fight Fran from the 313. Let's get to it.
Look, man, we've got a great interview with you guys. A guy that I've known for quite a few years now. Hell, I've walked out with him for quite a few of his fights when he was with Fuse. So we've got Bobby Nashty Nash ahead of his fight for CFFC for their welterweight title Thursday, August 3rd, live on UFC Fight Pass. How you doing, brother, man?
Doing good, man. Thank you very much for having me on, guys.
No problem. Throw out your social media. Let them know where they can find you.
You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, B_Nashty. That is B_NASHTY.
Well, Bobby, it's good to see you, first of all, because it's been a long time. I mean, I remember first getting to work with you when Don first started bringing you into MASH when I was there. And I remember walking that walk with you quite a few times back at the old, what was that, for TXC. Novi Show Place and all that good stuff. Man, it's been a long time, dude.
Yeah, back, man. There's no question about that. We do.
I mean, how the hell are you doing, man? I mean, it's been a long time. I mean, obviously you're fighting under not so, ideal circumstances. So, I mean, how are you doing these days, man?
So everything's been great, man. I'm happy. I'm living in St. Clair Shores now. Been training steadily. You're right, man. We aren't really circumstances are weird right now. I'm actually fighting behind closed doors with no audience. So it's me and my 2 cornermen who are going, and we have to get like COVID tests. So everything's weird. Gyms are closing down. You have to adapt. During these times, it's important to adapt. And the ones that are able to adapt during these times in anything, whether it's fighting or your career of anything, are going to be the ones that are successful.
So let's talk about that. I mean, you've had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, man. I mean, you were killing it on the regional scene for quite a while and were knocking dudes out, even though, for those who don't know, you were a wrestler at Michigan State. So, I mean, you come in with a wrestling background and we're knocking people out in the regional scene. And then you had your shot in the UFC, didn't go quite the way you wanted to. So tell me about what brought you back to MMA. I mean, you took a little bit of a layoff after the UFC fights. What went into you coming back? And what I know you've switched over to Michigan Top Team now. Tell me a little bit about your road back to the cage.
So, fighting in the regional promotion, I was doing really well. I was 8-1. I made it to the UFC, and I just took on some really tough competitors, and they didn't really go my way. I always was doing really well in the beginning of the rounds, and then, I found a way to lose, I guess, and after I took those 3 losses in the UFC, they let me go, and I took a 1.5 years off. But during that 1.5 years off, I had a lot of self-reflection. I trained a lot, and I was like, you know what, I'm still young, man. I still want to compete, and I knew I still had a lot of fight left in me, and I knew I was developing more. So the thing about, and I always remember, I always fought. I never really focused on getting better. And my last 2 fights, so since the UFC, I had a 1.5 years layoff where I just trained in it and got better. And then I fought. And here I am on another year layoff coming into the cage a lot. Again, I never had these long layoffs. I would fight every 3 to 6 months. So I was literally always in fight camp, and I just knew all I needed to do is put a little time in, and just keep improving. And I just pretty much realized, like, I'm right there competing. I'm right there. I'm really close to being able to compete with the absolute best in the world. There's just a few things I need to fix. And I think I finally am coming to that point in my career where I'm fixing those little small things. And it's going to make me be able to compete with the best in the world. And, here I am now fighting a very tough guy for a welterweight title.
Well, Corey, I've been flapping my gums for a minute. What you got?
I mean, like you said, I've noticed in a couple – no matter what the circumstance, like you see with some of the younger guys in like the UFC and other promotions where they they either have a stumble where they lose a fight, or they come upon an injury where they have to take time off, or maybe they have a USADA suspension or something along those lines. But you see where they come back from their layoffs, and you can tell if they've really been training or not. You can tell if somebody's been in the gym while they were on that layoff. I mean, that really, that time in between fights, you can really improve a lot on your skills.
Without
And
a doubt.
I think that's been proven quite a bit recently in the UFC. Clear example of it's, you know, like Sean O'Malley. Look at him. He had a 2-year layoff, and he's come back in there, and now he's, you know, rising right back to the top.
And especially if you're still young in the sport, you know, that's a good point you're making, because once I left the UFC, I had that 1.5-year layoff where I didn't fight, and I took a guy who was on a 6-fight win streak. He was 17-8, and a lot of people were like, "Hey man, you just took 3 losses. Like, should you be taking a fight like this?" But I knew, I was like, "Hey man, I've been training. I know who the hell I am." And I went out there and I competed really well, and I won the fight. So you see these guys, you know, when you're 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, you take a year or 2 layoff, you're fine. If you're pushing 35, 36, man, you got to be a little more active, you know.
Yeah.
So like you said, you know, you've been in the game for a really long time, and, you know, with you coming back now to fight for CFFC for their title and things like that, how does your past experience both in the UFC and in NCAA wrestling and all that stuff, how does that help you mentally for coming into a situation like this? Because like you said, you're used to fighting every 3 to 6 months, but I feel like with that pedigree, I mean, it just seems like another day at the office for you.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've been wrestling, like you said, at Michigan State. I wrestled at Big Tens, which they had fans, 10,000, 20,000 fans. I've wrestled in big venues. I wrestled at the Carver Hawkeye Arena where they sold it out. I've, you know, I've fought in the UFC with, you know, Denver Nuggets Stadium where it's 20,000 fans. I fought on big stages. This is a little different because there's no fans, right? So it's a little strange. But, you know, I've actually been in dual meets where I swear it's just like Michigan State versus Indiana. And there's like 4 guys in the stands. So I've like competed where it's thousands of people, and I've competed where it's like literally 4 or 5. So when it to me, it's just another day competing, man. I've been competing since I was 5 years old. I've been wrestling since I was 5 years old. Went on, you know, competed in, you know, college wrestling, went on to fight. It's just competing, man. I've been competing my whole life. So it's really no different to me, man. It's just another day. And I kind of like that there's no audience, to tell you the truth.
That's,
I like
I was going to ask you that question because you, yet again, not to keep falling back to the UFC, but you've seen a lot of fighters in their post-fight interviews or even pre-fight interviews kind of come out and say that they're excited to be able to hear their coaches, be able to kind of feel the fight out, even hear when they land. I mean, just the difference of being able to hear when you land compared to when it's, you know, the crowd noise is suffocating all of it. It's interesting. It's really led to some interesting fights. That's for sure.
Are you somebody that feeds, like for you, are you somebody that's kind of like enough in your own zone to where like the crowd noise doesn't bother you, or are you somebody that feeds off of it?
Well, when I fight in my hometown, I without a doubt feed off the crowd. My last WXC fight, if you know, like damn near the whole crowd were my people. They were getting loud and rowdy, and I feed off that. Well, I'm going to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm going into this guy's backyard, and I am the one they don't like. Well, guess what? I can't be heckled because his fans aren't there. So, like, I feel like that's kind of a positive for me. So, yeah, I do feed off the crowd, but I mean, you know, like I said, I've wrestled in the Carver Hawkeye Arena, and if anyone knows about wrestling in the Carver Hawkeye Arena, it is one of the most hostile environments to compete in the world, in my opinion. I mean, it is hostile at the Carver Hawkeye Arena. And, you know, and I didn't like it. I remember I was getting heckled by all these fans, and I hated it. And, you know, I don't have to deal with that. You know, I'm fighting in this guy's hometown, and I don't have to deal with his fans booing me when I come out. You know, it's just going to be him in his corner. That's it. So I kind of like it. You know, I do like it.
So tell me a little bit about how this fight came to be. I mean, like you said, you've had the long layoffs, and now you're stepping right into CFFC and getting a title shot with them. I mean, tell me a little bit about how that happened. And, I mean, with this fight, I mean, this fight can put you right back where you were back into the UFC with a big win on UFC Fight Pass.
Without a doubt, man. CFFC is a top-notch promotion, a great promotion, and holding a title for CFFC is pretty badass, man. It's going to be a feather in my cap, and it's something I'll be very proud of. But how I got about it was just, I know the level of fighter I am. I know that on any given day I can beat the absolute best in the world. And Cage Side Management hit me up, which they actually manage a lot of fighters here in Michigan. And they said, hey, Bobby, we have a fight. They actually hit me up like, hey, we have a fight. But it wasn't actually originally for CFFC, I don't think. They hit me up and they offered me a fight. I was like, hey, man, I'm itching to fight. I really want to fight. And they seem like really cool guys. And they're like, yeah, man, we'd love to have you with this fight. And I was like, hey, and I kind of was like, hey, man, I don't have management. You guys seem really cool. You seem like you care. And, you just got me a badass fight, main event. You guys want to manage me? And they're like, oh my God, yes, of course. And so far, everything's been great. Cage Side Management has been wonderful, and I'm excited to continue to work with them. So that's how I got the fight. I got it from Cage Side Management, and they just, they just knew I was game,
Hey, man, it's good that you bring that up because, like you said, Cage Side Management manages, a good number of the guys that we've had on this show. I mean, from Brett Martin to a couple weeks ago, Kenny Cross. I mean, they're starting to get a lot of the top guys here in Michigan, with Brett getting ready to fight Bigfoot Silva and all that as well. I mean, it's a good look. I mean, Michigan is finally starting to get, they're just due in a sense. And for a guy like you that's been around for so long, what does it mean to you to be one of those guys who's out here, up on the big promotions and Michigan finally kind of getting their spot in the spotlight?
Dude, I love it, man. And I love a Cage Side Management because they're still maybe a little bit smaller for a management team, but you can see the big dreams and the big goals. They have absolute big goals. And I love that someone like me can, help them maybe get there, or they can help me get there. I just love that, these other management teams, you're just the, pick a number out of the hat. Okay, we're having Bobby Nash fight this guy today. These guys seem to genuinely care. They care about their fighters. And another thing you brought up, Michigan MMA. Hey, man, let's be real. Michigan MMA, we have some of the best fighters in the country right here. Out of Detroit, Michigan, out of Lansing, Michigan, we have the best fighters in the world. Without a doubt, man. Right out here in Detroit.
It's a fact. I mean, you've literally got on one hand, I mean, Kenny Cross, Cody Stamen, Miles Jury. I mean, you can keep going. Vince Murdoch.
Yeah, without a doubt. We have the best fighters.
I mean, dude, you can go on for days, dude. Michigan has kind of always had that, I don't want to say underground hype, but it's kind of just now starting here because so many guys are starting to get into the UFC and Bellator and things of that nature. But that brings me to a good question, too. I mean, you and I have talked a little bit about this, off the record and all that stuff. But obviously, everybody knows you have the college wrestling background and all that kind of stuff. But was fighting always something you wanted to do, or was it, did it just kind of come natural after wrestling?
Fighting wasn't really something I always wanted to do. Fighting kind of started off. So how that started was I wrestled at Michigan State. And after I was done wrestling at Michigan State, I still had an urge. I still wanted to compete, right?
Right.
And I still had that, I was like, man, I got to do something. What am I going to do? So I took some amateur fights. I did really well, went pro, did really well. And once I got to the UFC, I was like, okay, hell, I'm going to make a career out of this. I'm going to really push forward and go with it. But it was never really it kind of was just something I wanted to do because I wanted to compete. And I was an athlete and I was a really good wrestler. So it kind of just translated well to me. And yeah, I mean, it was never really anything I remember just being a freshman in college and being like, this is fucking badass. I want to take a fight. This is cool. And that's really why I did it. it wasn't anything like, this is what I'm going to do. It kind of just happened. I just had a lot of success, you know? So, yeah, that's kind of how it happened.
I mean, that brings up your start and all those kind of things. My question is, so now, you know, you're a family man, you've got a little guy, you know, you're married now, correct?
Yes, I am. I just got married last week.
That's what I was going to say. I thought you just got married. So, I mean, you've got a whole, I mean, what's your motivation these days? Obviously, it's different than just wanting to get in there and get in the cage. But, I mean, you getting kind of like your second go around here, you know, getting this big fight, and who knows what comes if you do well, as you usually do. I mean, what is the motivation going into this fight for you?
So my motivation would definitely be just to prove to myself the athlete I am, because I know how good I am. I know how talented I am, and I want to prove to myself. And I just want to compete against high-level athletes. That's really my motivation, and that's my goal. I want to go out there and, you know, I don't care if I fight in the UFC, if I fight for WXC, if I fight regional promotion, if I fight here for CFFC. I don't care. I just want high-level opponents to fight. That's all I want. I want to prove to myself. Hold on. I want to prove to myself the athlete I am and just what I'm capable of. So that's my motivation, just to show what I'm capable of to myself, no one else. I just want to fight high-level guys and prove to myself that I'm capable of competing at that level.
Well, Corey, I've been seeing you had something cocked and ready to go there, bro. So I'll let you go there.
It's been a hot minute. I was gonna bring up the whole. I know them boys in Iowa take wrestling serious. That's gonna be my whole conversation. But we're a little past that at this point.
Dude, we can talk about whatever, man. There ain't no roadmap to this.
I could tell you about those Carver Hawkeye fighting. I mean, wrestling in the Carver Hawkeye arena is crazy, dude. Like, first of all the fans know your name. So they'll be like, Bobby Nash, you're going to get your ass whipped, boy. You're going to get your ass whipped. Like, first of all, wrestling, but like at the Carver Hawkeye arena, it is extremely hostile. Like, it's like surprisingly hostile at the Carver Hawkeye arena. Those Iowa fans, like, they tailgate, they drink, and they come in and they heckle the hell.
Mm-hmm. They lead the nation in wrestling almost every year, so that's kind of like their foot. That, you know, if it's Friday Night Lights down in Texas, it's, you know, wrestling in Iowa. That's, you know,
yeah. The Iowa Hawkeyes, their wrestling program is actually a revenue sport, kind of like how Michigan State and Michigan, their football teams are revenue sport. And a lot of programs, wrestling isn't necessarily a revenue sport, but in Iowa it is.
No, well, because it goes back to, like you were saying, you go to your average wrestling meet, you go somewhere like Indiana or something like that, and you're fighting in front of, you know, 10 people. You know, you're wrestling in front of 10 people, where you go to Iowa and it's sell out at every event. It doesn't even matter. They treat wrestling like a whole.
They've got an MMA factory there too. I mean, with Pat Miletich and the Miletich fighting team that come out of there, man. I mean, when UFC first started to get hot, all you heard about was Pat Miletich, and they fought with the Miletiches. You had Tim Sylvia, Jens Pulver. I mean, you had a lot of guys that went through Pat Miletich at one time or the other. So
yeah, and they had a lot of wrestlers that transferred over there as well.
I mean, like I said, I mean, I've always said this, and I think you would obviously agree. I mean, being somebody that originally started with boxing before I tried jiu-jitsu or anything like that, I mean, I think you would agree. And I've heard Joe Rogan say this on multiple occasions too. I feel like people who have that wrestling base and that strong wrestling base come in with such an advantage, because I feel like you can be taught how to strike. But if you always kind of have that wrestling as the ace in a hole where, okay, shit, he cracked me, but I can take him down and hold him down and just kind of ride it out, that can always come in handy in a fight.
Well, this is the way I look at it. I feel like the wrestling. Now, do you need to have striking and jiu-jitsu? Yes. But I think it's very important to have wrestling. And the reason I think so is because I believe the wrestler dictates where the fight goes. So me being the college wrestler going in against Jeremiah Wells August 13th, if I want that fight on the feet or if I want that fight on the ground, it's up to me. I'm the Big Ten college wrestler, not you. I dictate where that fight goes. Obviously, there's other things that, you know, incorporate if he's a good wrestler himself or something. But, you know, when it comes down to it, wrestling dictates where the fight goes. And, you know, it's really the only sport where you start at 5 years old, you cut weight, you know, you can pee. When you spar, you're not going 100%. But when you wrestle, you can go 100%. You know, so it just translates really well to the MMA, extremely well.
Well, go ahead.
I mean, you can see like clear examples of it. Like, look at how, not in this last weekend's event, but the one prior to that, you had the Whitaker-Till fight. And the whole reason why Whitaker won that was because he was able to squeeze out a couple positions because of his wrestling. Or you look at like another clear example. I mean, it's escaping me at the moment. Yeah, GSP. I mean, there's a million examples of it. You see like people coming out of Brazil that have been training jiu-jitsu their whole life, and that the whole commentary crew will say, if only they knew a little bit of wrestling and could actually get them to the ground, this whole fight would be theirs. They'd have the belt immediately.
Nate Diaz is a prime example, dude. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but he doesn't take people down.
Yeah, but it's not a skill that you can learn overnight, especially against people like you that have been doing it since they were a kid. You know,
that's the best thing is whenever I am fighting someone who's never wrestled and they're wrestling for like, I got to fight Bobby Nash in 8 weeks and they're training wrestling. I'm like, dude, you can train wrestling for the next fucking 3 years, dude. You're wasting your time. Work on your strengths. Don't work on your wrestling because you're wasting your time right now. Like I really believe that. It's like, you got to start when you're young, man. It really is hard to learn how to wrestle. People think they can just pick it up, man. It's difficult. It's a language, man, that you have to learn.
Especially on offensive wrestling. It seems like a couple of the strikers have done a decent job of at least being able to do some decent defensive wrestling and stopping the takedowns.
That's a good
like that. Actually being able to continue to wrestle as like DC and stuff says it, where you keep shooting.
That's a good point you're making, because everybody thinks, oh, it's just a double leg. Oh, it's just a single leg. No. Listen, you don't understand the push, pull, snap, how I move him to step his left leg. And when I shoot on him, when he sprawls, guess what? I already have a second, third, fourth move figured out. You know, it's not just a double leg. It's not just a single leg. There's a lot of steps you have to do in order to get him to move this way, in order to manipulate his body to do a certain position, you know? So, and it just takes years and years to figure that out. It's not just a double leg. It's not just a single leg. It's not just a sprawl. That's what you hear. But there's so many little details that you figure out, and you can only figure it out if you've done it for years.
Yeah. Wrist control, 2-on-1, being able to post, to get up, just simple little aspects. And like I said, you can almost really tell who's got like almost a MMA wrestling where they haven't trained it their whole lives compared to somebody who's a wrestler who transitioned into MMA, because it's night and day. It really is.
It is.
So that leads right into a question that is going to be a perfect one when it pertains to this fight. Like you said, you've been doing this stuff for most of your life. Obviously, as we've mentioned at multiple points during this interview, obviously we're all going through the same thing with the COVID and the pandemic. For you, you know, training at Michigan Top Team, like we've mentioned, you've got guys like Kenny Cross that are out here, you know, going to fight for Dana White's Contender Series and all that. Has this affected, you know, your training at all? Or do you feel like the fact that you've been able to do it on so many different levels, do you think that just makes it, you know, makes the training the same too?
Well, it was a process at first to figure things out, but I believe that I have adapted very well to the circumstance. And I know when it comes to fighting, I know how to fight, man. I know how to fight. I know how to wrestle. I know how to strike. I know my jiu-jitsu. I know how to fight. To be completely honest with you, all it really is if I just got in shape, I'd go in there and fight. I know how to fight. So for me, when it comes to fighting, it's really the main focus for me is just getting in shape. You know, just conditioning, running, have I been sparring? Of course I have. But, I'm really not
But
trying.
it's muscle memory.
When I'm in a fight camp, I'm not in a fight camp trying to learn or get better. I'm in a fight camp trying to get in shape. A fight camp to me is getting in shape. I should already know how to fight. After this fight, I'm going to take time and get better. But right now, I'm just trying to get in shape. I already know how to fight. I know what I have to do to beat this guy. It's all about getting in shape.
And that kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier with, your couple layoffs that you were coming off of. That's the time where you take to actually hone your skills and get better at things. Where your fight camps, if you're banging out fights every 3 to 6 months, man, you don't have that time to truly hone in your skills.
And
You're so worried about making weight. You're worried about making weight. You're worried about jumping where you got to go, getting medicals, getting this, that, and the other, getting coaches in line, and you don't have the time to actually get in the gym, become a training partner with somebody else who's getting in a fight. Try to work, that's how the skills are actually improved, not taking fights.
Exactly.
All right. So the next question I got for you, man. So we've asked this from everybody to Booker T, Eric Bischoff, Bruce Pritchard, everybody that comes on here, we ask the same question, but they're modified depending on who we've had on. So the question when it's on the wrestling end is, do you have any locker room pet peeves? So for you being a fighter, I'm going to modify that a little bit. For your fight day, fight week, do you have any like pet peeves or any certain things? Are you a guy who's got to be off on his own all day, or, is it just, smooth chilling?
I'm definitely the type of person that I want to be with my corner that day. And usually we have to get to the back room. I don't know, like, let's say the show starts at 7. We have to be there like 3:30 or 4. So I want to go out and do something, maybe go on a hike, maybe go to the park, maybe be out in the sun. I don't want to be crammed up, locked in my hotel all day, because then I'm just getting caught up in my mind. I'm thinking, and I'm the type of person who wants to be with my corners, be with my friends, walk around, get my mind off the fight, and just be active. Whatever it could be, That's kind of how I am.
So do you think with I know at the UFC they're doing the thing where you got to be quarantined for 2 days or whatever it is. I don't know. Are they doing all that with CFFC?
So that's a good point, man. I actually didn't ask that. But I'm sure they are, right? I mean, we're getting the COVID test, and that's funny. That's going to kind of suck, because I'm the kind of guy who likes to get out and about.
Well, that's why I wondered when you were just saying that, because I just saw Kenny stuff from the other day, and they basically locked him up for 2 days.
Yeah, and that's funny, because I was talking to Kenny. I'm like, how was Vegas, man? Do you have it? He's like, it fucking sucked, dude. He's like, I felt like I was in a prison. I'm like, damn, that sucks. So yeah, that's going to be I'm going to have to figure something out, man. Maybe I'll get some board games or something.
Bring a game system, man.
I might
do something. Kill, like you said, keep that mind preoccupied. Fight.
Dude, I really don't play any video games, so I don't know. Mate, I'll figure something out. I don't know.
Hey, man, there's always podcasts.
There you go.
Hey, man, but before we let you get out of here, we've talked about the matchup. Before you get out of here, do you got any last words for your opponent? And what are your thoughts on the fight for any fight fans who have never maybe seen your work?
Hi, guys. This fight is August 13th, Thursday, August 13th. It'll be live on UFC Fight Pass. It's going to be a great fight. We're fighting the champion from CFFC. I'm coming in there, coming to win. All I got to say to my opponent is come correct. Come correct, because if you don't, you're going to get in trouble. I'm coming correct, and I'm coming hungry, and I'm coming to win. So watch this fight.
Don't blink.
I'm correct. That's right.
Don't blink. Well, I think we can't put a bow on this any better, man. He better come correct, or dude might be getting his head knocked off. So, Bobby, why don't you throw out your social media one more time? Let them know where they can find you. And like he said, you can find the fight live on UFC Fight Pass on Thursday, August 13th. Make sure you're checking it out. Let them know where they can find you.
Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, B Nashty. That is B_NASHTY. And thank you guys for having me on. I had a lot of fun.
Cool. Glad you enjoyed it. Corey, let them know where they can find you real quick.
Glad to have you on, brother. And as always, fight fan from the 313. Send me a follow on Twitter. I'll follow you back.
Well, once we get out of the pandemic deal, I'm definitely going to have to bring you back when my co-host can be here. Like I said, everybody's kind of been all over the place with all the stuff with pandemic. So we've been making do with what we got. But make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the great content. We're bringing you a part 2 interview with Aaron O'Ryan where he describes the finish of Wyatt Strong and what they're going through in his son's fight with cancer. You're not going to want to miss that. Part 1 is in the link to the top right. Like I said, man, there's plenty of great content. Feel the bang with DDP, whatever's your fancy. Check it out. Knockouts and 3 counts. And until next time, peace.